The air was thick with fog, cold and damp. Wrapping around the forest like a heavy blanket, Eli, a young human boy of 17, walked slowly along the narrow path, each step crunching over wet leaves. He had come here to find rare herbs to sell in the nearby trade station. Hoping to earn enough for a week's worth of food, the alien forest was dangerous. But Eli had no choice without money. He would go hungry. The trees were taller than any he had seen on Earth, their twisted branches disappearing into the mist. Above, every sound was muffled, as if the fog itself was listening. He could hear his own breathing, the faint drip of water from the leaves, and the distant rustle of something moving. Then he heard a sound that froze him in place. It was not the cry of a bird or the howl of a predator he knew. It was a voice, high and trembling. Calling for help, it sounded close, but the fog made it impossible to judge the distance. Eli's heart began to pound. He knew the forest was full of traps, both natural and deadly, but the voice was filled with pain and fear. Without thinking, he turned toward the sound, pushing through ferns that brushed against his shoulders. The mist grew thicker as he moved deeper. He had to squint to see more than a few steps ahead. Finally, he saw a shadow, small and hunched over, as he got closer. The shape became clear. It was a girl, but not a human girl. Her skin shimmered faintly in the low light. A pale silver blue, her eyes glowed like soft lanterns in the dark. She was sitting on the ground, clutching her leg, which was bleeding with strange blue liquid. Her breathing was fast, almost panicked. When she saw him, she flinched back, as if expecting an attack. "It's okay," Eli said softly, raising his empty hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." She hesitated, her gaze darting to the trees around them. Then she whispered something in a language he didn't understand. Before Eli could speak again, a deep growl rolled through the fog. It was so low and powerful that he felt it in his bones. The girl's eyes widened, and she shook her head frantically. Pointing behind him, Eli turned, and his stomach dropped. Through the fog, a huge shape emerged, walking slowly but with the certainty of a hunter. Its body was covered in dark, bristling fur, its massive jaws lined with teeth like jagged knives. Its eyes glowed a sickly yellow, fixed directly on them. He had heard stories of the Renma beast, the most feared predator in this part of the forest. But he had never seen one up close. Now it was here, and it was hunting. Eli knew he had no weapon strong enough to fight it. His small hunting knife would be useless against such a monster. He glanced at the alien girl. She was too injured to run. If he left her, the beast would tear her apart in seconds. Something in Eli's chest tightened. He could not walk away. "Get behind me," he said firmly. Stepping forward, the girl stared at him as if she couldn't believe what she had heard. The beast growled again. Lowering its head, Eli spread his arms wide. Trying to make himself look bigger, his legs trembled, but he stood his ground. The Rendma's claws scraped the earth as it crept closer. Its breath was hot and foul, drifting through the fog. Eli's grip tightened on his knife, though he knew it wouldn't help much when the beast lunged. It was like a shadow exploding out of the mist. Eli threw himself in front of the girl, shoving her back as he slashed at the creature's face. The blade barely scratched it. In a blur, the beast's massive paw swung, claws slicing across Eli's back. Pain exploded through his body, forcing the air from his lungs. He staggered, but didn't fall. The girl gasped, her hands over her mouth. Eli turned his head enough to see Hershey looked both terrified and shocked, as if no human had ever done this for one of her kind. The beast circled them slowly. Growling low, Eli tried to keep it in sight, his body screaming with pain. His vision blurred, but he refused to back away. He had one thought: if he could just hold it off long enough, maybe the girl could escape. But she didn't move. Instead, she whispered something again, this time louder, her voice desperate. Eli didn't understand the words, but they sounded like a plea. The beast's muscles tensed. Ready to strike again, Eli clenched his jaw, preparing for the worst. Then, a sudden sound tore through the air, a roar, deep and commanding, far more powerful than the beast's. The predator froze, its ears twitching. Eli turned his head, its breath catching through the swirling fog. A massive figure appeared, tall and broad, holding a weapon that glowed faintly with dangerous energy. The figure's eyes shone like molten gold, and every step it took made the ground feel heavier. The beast hesitated, growled once more, then backed away slowly into the mist. Eli could still feel the heat of its breath on his skin. When it was gone, the figure came closer. Eli could see now it was an alien warrior, wearing armor marked with scars from many battles. The alien's gaze moved from Eli to the girl, then back to Eli. Eli's knees felt weak, his body heavy, and then the alien warrior spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. Human, why protect her? The beast's growl echoed through the mist, low and dangerous. Eli's back throbbed with pain where the claws had torn deep. Warm blood dripping down under his shirt, the alien girl stared at him with wide, glowing eyes. Her lips parted, but no words coming out. The fog wrapped around them like a living thing. Hiding the rest of the forest in shifting shadows, the Rendema beast paced slowly, its massive paws silent on the damp earth. Its yellow eyes locked on its prey. Eli kept his body between the creature and the girl, knife trembling in his hand. The wound burned with every breath, but he didn't dare lower his guard. Run? Eli whispered without turning his head. The girl shook her head sharply, her silver hair brushing her cheeks. No, run, she said in broken human speech, her voice shaking. Will hunt. The beast stopped pacing, lowering its head, muscles rippling under its dark fur. Eli's fingers tightened on the knife. Even though he knew it was too small to truly hurt such a monster, his heart pounded, but his mind stayed. Focused, if the beast lunged, he would have only one chance. The fog shifted suddenly as a gust of wind blew through the trees. For a brief moment, Eli could see beyond the clearing a dark wall of trees on all sides. No clear escape. The beast's lips curled back, showing rows of sharp teeth dripping with saliva. Then it leaped forward, its speed shocking for something so large. Eli moved instinctively, pushing the girl hard to the side as he swung his blade upward. The edge scraped against the beast's thick hide. Leaving only a shallow cut, it roared in rage, the sound vibrating through Eli's bones. The next strike came fast, a massive paw swiping across his side. Pain exploded as the claws raked through cloth and skin, forcing him to his knees. The world tilted, the fog spinning around him, but he forced himself up. He could hear the girl behind him, her breathing fast, her voice trembling in her alien tongue. The beast circled again, its eyes gleaming in the faint light. Eli's vision blurred, but his stance stayed firm. This was the end. He would meet it standing. The Renmaw lunged again, and this time Eli sidestepped just enough to avoid a killing blow. He slashed toward its neck, the dagger biting a little deeper this time. It roared again, whipping its tail toward him like a whip, the force knocking him backward into the wet dirt. His body screamed with pain, but before the beast could move in for the kill, a sound cut through the air, deep and commanding. It was not the beast's roar, but something stronger, something that made even the predator pause. From the fog ahead, a tall shadow emerged. The figure was massive, easily twice Eli's height, the shape of its armor catching what little light filtered through the mist. The weapon it carried glowed faintly at its edges, humming with dangerous energy. The beast stepped back, growling low, its head lowering in what looked almost like submission. Eli stood frozen, his knife still raised. As the shadow drew closer, the girl's eyes lit up not with fear, but with recognition. The figure stepped fully into view, and Eli saw him clearly now, a towering alien warrior. His golden eyes burning through the mist, his armor carved with strange markings that spoke of battles fought long ago. The alien's gaze swept over Eli before focusing on the girl. Her voice broke as she spoke in her own language, fast and urgent. The warrior's eyes narrowed slightly, then turned back. To Eli, human, he said in a deep, rough voice, "Why stand between my blood and the beast?" Eli's legs trembled, but he met the alien's gaze. She needed help. He said simply, "That's all." For a moment, there was only silence. The fog curling between them, then the warrior stepped forward, his weapon lowering slightly. With a sharp gesture, he made a sound toward the beast. The Rendmaw gave one last growl before melting into the fog, disappearing into the trees. Eli felt his knees weaken, the knife almost slipping from his hand. The alien warrior moved to the girl, lifting her into one arm as if she weighed nothing. Then he turned to Eli, reaching down with his other massive hand. "You bleed much," he said. "Come, Eli." Hesitated for only a second before taking the offered hand. The alien pulled him up with ease, supporting his weight as they began to walk. The fog closed around them once more, but Eli felt something shift inside him for the first time in this strange land. He wasn't alone. The forest was silent after the beast left. Only the faint hiss of the fog moving between the trees remained. Eli could barely stand, his back burning with pain, blood soaking through his shirt. The massive alien warrior stepped closer, his golden eyes fixed on Eli. The ground seemed to tremble under his heavy boots, each step slow and deliberate. The alien stopped just a few paces away, towering over the human boy. He was unlike anyone Eli had seen before, taller than two men. His shoulders broad, his armor carved with strange markings that looked like they told a story. The alien girl, still sitting on the ground, looked up at him with a mixture of relief and fear. Her lips moved quickly in her own language, her voice trembling as she explained what had happened. Eli couldn't understand the words, but he knew she was telling the truth. The alien warrior's gaze shifted from her to Eli, and for a long moment, he said nothing. Then, in broken human speech, the deep voice rumbled, "Human, why protect her?" Eli swallowed, his throat dry. It would have been easier to say nothing, to just collapse and let the fog take him. But something in the alien's eyes told him this question mattered. She needed help, Eli managed to say, his voice weak. "I couldn't leave her." The alien's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something, perhaps surprise, perhaps respect. Most humans in this sector avoided alien affairs, fearing the power and politics that came with them. But Eli had stepped in without hesitation. The alien warrior knelt down, his armor creaking. He studied Eli's wounds, his sharp gaze missing nothing. "You bleed much." "For one not of our kind," the alien said slowly. Eli gave a faint smile, though his lips were pale. "Happens when a beast claws your back." The alien's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer. Then he stood again, without another word. He bent and lifted both Eli and the girl as if they weighed no more than feathers. One arm cradled the girl, the other held Eli across his broad shoulder. Eli tried to protest. "I can walk," but the truth was, his legs felt like they could give out at any second. The alien ignored his words, moving with long, steady strides through the fog. Eli's head swayed with each step, his vision blurring in and out. The alien girl clung to her father's armor, whispering softly to him. From her tone, Eli guessed she was telling him everything: the attack by the raiders, the beast, and how a strange human boy had stood between her and death. They moved deeper into the forest until the fog began to thin. Faint lights appeared in the distance, flickering like fireflies. Soon, Eli saw the outline of structures, tall, curved buildings made of dark stone and glowing vines. The air here was warmer, safer. At the center stood a massive hall, its roof lined with sharp metal spines that caught the light. Eli realized this must be the heart of the alien clan. Guards with spears tipped in glowing crystal stepped forward as they approached, their eyes widening at the sight of the human in the chief's arms, inside the hall. The air smelled faintly of smoke and herbs. The alien set Eli down on a raised platform. While the girl was taken gently by waiting healers, Eli tried to sit up, but the pain in his back forced him to remain still. The alien chief stood tall before him, arms crossed. "You know who I am?" he asked, his voice like distant thunder. Eli shook his head. "I am Theric, chief of the Varen clan." The alien said, "And that is my daughter?" Eli blinked, the truth hitting him hard. The girl he had risked his life for wasn't just anyone. She was the heir to the leadership of the most feared clan in this region. Theric's gaze narrowed slightly. "Do you know what that means, human?" Eli hesitated. "It means I probably just made a lot of enemies." A deep sound rumbled from Theric's chest. It took Eli a moment to realize it was a laugh. "Yes," the chief said, "enemies, but also allies." Theric leaned closer, his eyes glowing brighter. "In the dim light, in my clan, blood spilled for another is not forgotten," he said. "You are no longer just a stranger. You are bound to us now." Eli didn't fully understand, but he could hear the weight in those words. The chief turned to one of his warriors and gave a sharp command. The warrior left quickly, returning moments later with a small vial of glowing liquid. "This will keep you alive," Theric said, holding it out. Eli drank. It burned like fire in his throat, but almost instantly, the pain in his back dulled. The chief straightened, speaking to the gathered warriors in his own tongue. Their eyes followed Eli, and he could feel the shift in the room. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with distrust, but all of them knew this human had done something few would dare. Theric placed a heavy hand on Eli's shoulder, his grip firm. "You will heal here," he said. "But understand this: saving my daughter has tied your fate to ours." Eli didn't know whether to feel safe or trapped, but deep down, he knew one thing: his life would never be the same again. Eli woke to the sound of soft water dripping somewhere close. His head felt heavy, and his back ached like fire, though the pain was softer than before. When his eyes opened, he saw a ceiling made of woven branches glowing faintly with blue crystal. Light, the air was warm, filled with the smell of herbs and something sharp, almost like metal. He realized he was lying on a bed made of thick animal furs. The covers were so soft he almost didn't want to move. Then he noticed someone sitting beside him. It was the alien girl, the one he had saved, watching him with those bright silver blue eyes. Her leg was wrapped in strange vines that pulsed, gently glowing with light. The wound that had bled so much before was now closed, though the vines seemed alive. "You wake," she said softly in broken human speech. Her voice was calm, but carried a strange weight, as if she still didn't fully believe he was alive. Eli tried to sit up, but his back screamed in protest. The girl reached forward quickly, pressing her hand lightly to his shoulder to stop him. "Don't," she said, "the healing still works." Eli glanced at his own back and saw glowing patterns under his skin like moving light tracing over the wounds. It was unlike anything he had seen on Earth. "What is this?" he asked. She hesitated before answering. "Our healers gave you lifeblood." Before Eli could ask more, the tent flap moved aside, and the alien chief, Theric, entered. His massive form filled the space, his golden eyes studying Eli closely. "You live," Theric said simply. Good. He stepped to the side, and 2 alien healers followed him inside. They carried bowls filled with steaming liquid, their long fingers moving with care. One healer knelt by Eli's bed and began to spread a glowing salve across his back. The other checked the girl's leg, humming in a deep, soothing tone. The salve burned at first, making Eli grit his teeth, but then the fire faded, replaced by a deep warmth that made his muscles relax. The healers spoke in their own language, and Theric translated, "You will walk again soon, but you must rest until." The moons turned twice. Eli nodded slowly, not sure how long that was in human days. The girl gave a faint smile. "You saved me. So now we save you." Eli felt a mix of embarrassment and confusion. Back home, he had been just another face in the crowd. No one had ever treated his life as something worth saving. Now here he was, in the heart of an alien clan, being healed. By their best healers, Theric's deep voice broke his thoughts. "You know, human, you have made enemies." The chief said, "The raiders who attacked my daughter will come again. And they will know your face." Eli's jaw tightened. Then, "I'll be ready." Theric's eyes glinted with approval. "We will see." The healers left. And the tent grew quieter. Only the faint sound of the glowing vines shifting on the girl's leg filled the air. Eli looked at her. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then said Zyra. The name felt strange on his tongue, but strong. "Eli," he replied. And for the first time, she smiled fully. Her smile was small, but real, and it made the heavy air feel lighter. Hours passed, and Eli dozed in and out of sleep once. He woke to find Zyra humming softly. Her voice low and melodic, she seemed lost in thought. Her gaze fixed on the floor. He wondered what her life was like before the attack. But he didn't ask. Some wounds weren't visible, and he knew what it was like to carry those when night came. The tent glowed faintly from the blue crystals embedded in the walls. Shadows moved as clan members passed outside, their voices muffled. Theric returned later, placing something on the small table beside Eli's bed. It was a dagger, unlike any Eli had seen before, its blade black as midnight, its hilt wrapped in silver wire. "This is for you," Theric said. "It is not for hunting. It is for surviving." Eli picked it up, feeling its strange weight in his hand. It was perfectly balanced, almost as if it belonged to him. "Why give me this?" Eli asked. Theric's gaze was steady. "Because danger will come, and you must not be unarmed when it does." After Theric left, Zyra leaned closer, her voice quiet. "You don't understand yet," she said, "but saving me, saving the chief's daughter, it changes everything." Eli frowned. "Changes what?" She didn't answer directly, only saying, "You will see when the enemy comes." Her words stayed in his mind long after she closed her eyes to rest. Outside, the forest was still, but somewhere far away, a beast's roar echoed faintly. Eli gripped the dagger, the glow of its edge catching the crystal light. He didn't know what awaited him, but deep down, he felt the storm was already on its way. The next morning began with a strange silence. No laughter of the clan's children, no distant hammering of metal. Eli woke to find the air tense, every voice outside low and urgent. When he stepped out of the healing tent, Zyra was already there, leaning on a carved wooden staff, her injured leg wrapped tightly. She looked toward the main gate of the camp, her expression hard. "They're coming," she said quietly. Eli frowned. "Who?" "The ones who hurt me," she answered. "And they are not alone." Before Eli could speak again, the sound reached him, heavy boots striking the earth, the metallic clink of weapons, the sharp growl of alien war beasts. The fog that usually hung in the morning air was gone, leaving the open field before the camp exposed. On the far side, shadows began to move, taking shape as they drew closer. Theric, the alien chief, stood at the center of the gate. His massive frame blocked the entrance like a living wall around him. Warriors lined up in perfect rows, each holding a spear tipped with glowing crystal. Their armor shimmered faintly in the light, carved with markings that told of past victories. Eli stepped forward, but Theric raised a hand without looking back. "You stay behind me, human," the chief said firmly. "This fight is not yours." Yet, the enemy appeared at last tall. Broad-shouldered aliens with armored black as ash and red glowing eyes. Their leader rode on the back of a scaled beast with claws that tore the ground. He carried a long blade made of jagged bone. When his gaze fell on Eli, a cruel smile spread across his face. He spoke something in his language, and though Eli couldn't understand the words, he felt their meaning. It was a promise of death. Zyra's grip tightened on her staff. "They want you dead," she whispered. "They saw what you did for me, and to them." "That is an insult." Eli felt his jaw tighten. "Then they'll have to go through me, too." Theric's voice rumbled low. "You will fight when I tell you, not before." The enemy leader urged his beast forward until he stood a few steps from Theric. They exchanged words in a sharp, fast rhythm that Eli couldn't follow. But the tension in the air told him enough. No one was leaving without blood being spilled. The enemy warriors spread out in a half-circle, surrounding the entrance. Eli's hand went to the dagger Theric had given him the night before. It felt warm, as if it knew the moment was near. Zyra glanced at him, her eyes steady. "If you see me fall, you fight." Before Eli could answer, the first arrow flew. It struck the dirt at Theric's feet, hissing with a strange energy. That was all it took. The battle began. The Varen warriors roared as they surged forward. Spears met blades, and the sound of metal striking metal filled the air. Eli stayed behind Theric at first, just as ordered, but the fight moved quickly, and soon the enemy pressed close. One warrior broke through the line and charged straight for Eli. Without thinking, Eli ducked under the swing of the alien's blade and drove his dagger upward. The black blade slid between armor plates, and the enemy staggered back, collapsing. The heat of battle hit Eli all at once, the shouting, the clash of weapons, the smell of dust and blood. Zyra fought beside him, using her staff to strike with sharp, precise blows, though her legs slowed her. Her arms were fast. Together, they held their ground against two more attackers. One tried to grab Zyra's arm, but Eli slammed his shoulder into the alien's chest. Knocking him off balance, the chief's voice boomed across the field. "Push them back." The Varen warriors responded with renewed fury. The line surged forward, step by step, forcing the enemy away from the gate. But the enemy leader stayed still, watching. His eyes never left Eli. Finally, he dismounted from his beast and drew his jagged bone blade. He walked slowly toward them, every step deliberate. Zyra's voice tightened. "Eli, that is their war chief." The war chief pointed his blade at Eli and said something sharp. Theric moved to stand between them, his weapon humming with dangerous energy. "This is not your kill," Theric growled. But the war chief ignored him. His gaze locked on Eli. The tension was so thick that even the noise of battle seemed to fade for a moment. Eli could feel his heart pounding, his grip tightening on the dagger. The war chief lunged suddenly, moving faster than Eli expected. Theric blocked the strike with a flash of light. The clash sending sparks into the air. "Now you fight." Theric barked over his shoulder. Eli didn't hesitate. He stepped to the side, circling the enemy chief. Every instinct told him this was madness. But he remembered Zyra's words and the way the raiders had hurt her. He couldn't step back now. The war chief swung again, missing Eli by inches. Eli ducked low, rolling to one side, and slashed upward with the dagger. The blade caught the enemy's arm, making him snarl. It wasn't enough to end the fight. But it was enough to show he wouldn't be easy prey. Therek's roar filled the air as he struck from the other side, forcing the war chief to retreat a step, and just like that, the tide of the battle began to shift. The enemy warriors, seeing their leader under pressure, started to fall back. The Varen clan pressed forward, their war cries echoing. Eli stood beside Therek, blood on his hands but still breathing. The war chief glared at him one last time. Before retreating into the distance, the field fell quiet except for the sound of heavy breathing. Therek looked at Eli and said, "You fight like one of us." Eli, chest heaving, could only nod, but inside he knew this was only the beginning. The night came quickly, the sky painted in deep violet and silver. Above the battlefield, 2 moons hung side by side, casting a pale light over the wounded ground. The air was heavy with the smell of dust, smoke, and blood. Eli stood near the edge of the camp, dagger still stained, watching the enemy forces regroup in the distance. They had not left completely, and that meant one thing: they were preparing to strike again. Therek stood beside him, silent, his golden eyes fixed on the horizon. The glow of the moons reflected in his armor, making him look like a figure carved from ancient stone. "Why haven't they gone?" Eli asked quietly. "They wait for night to fall deep." Therek replied, "The dark is their ally." Eli looked at the line of Varen warriors forming once more, their spears tipped with glowing crystals. Zira moved among them, her staff in hand, despite her healing leg. When she caught Eli's eyes, she gave a small nod. Her face showed no fear, only determination. A distant horn sounded deep and mournful. From the shadows beyond the open field, the enemy emerged again. This time, they were larger in number, their armor glinting faintly under the moons. War beasts padded beside them, their eyes glowing like embers. The ground trembled with every step they took. Therek lifted his weapon, a long polar with a blade that hummed with energy. "Hold the line," he commanded, his voice carrying like thunder. The clash began in an instant. The enemy surged forward, and the Varen warriors met them with a wall of spears. Eli found himself fighting at Zyra's side, their movements almost in sync. She struck low, sweeping an enemy's legs, and Eli finished the attack with a quick slash of his dagger. The sounds of battle filled the night, metal against metal, cries of pain, the snarl of beasts. A war beast leaped toward Eli, its claws flashing in the moonlight. He rolled aside, stabbing upward into its neck. Feeling the hot spray of its blood, the 2 moons lit everything in a strange, ghostly glow. Shadows stretched long and thin, making it hard to tell friend from foe. Eli stayed close to Zyra, guarding her from attacks aimed at her injured leg. Once, she shoved him aside just in time to avoid a spear that would have taken his head. They moved together like they had trained for years, though they had met only days ago at the center of the field. Therek fought like a storm given form. His weapons spun and cut, each strike sending enemies flying. The war chief from earlier charged him, their blades clashing with sparks under the moons. Every impact rang like a drumbeat across the battlefield. Eli could see that neither intended to give ground. The warriors around them fought with renewed fury, knowing their leaders were locked in a duel that could decide the night. An enemy broke through the line and came for Eli. The alien's blade flashed, and Eli barely blocked it with the dagger. The force sent him stumbling, but Zyra stepped in, smashing her staff into the attacker's side. Together, they brought him down. Eli's breath came fast, his muscles burning. Still, he refused to stop. The moons climbed higher, and the battle raged on. Bodies fell, the earth beneath them trampled into dust and blood. The Varen warriors pushed forward in small surges, forcing the enemy back step by step. But the war beasts fought savagely, refusing to retreat. One massive beast leaped onto a Varen fighter, pinning him down. Without thinking, Eli ran forward. Plunging his dagger deep into its throat, the beast collapsed. And the saved warrior shouted his thanks before diving back into the fight. Near the front, Theric finally gained the upper hand. With a roar, he slammed his polearm into the ground. The energy from it cracking the earth, the war chief staggered. His weapon lowering, Eli saw the opening and acted a move behind the enemy leader. Slashing at the back of his leg, the war chief dropped to one knee. And Theric struck with a final crushing blow, sending him sprawling into the dirt. A wave of fear rippled through the enemy ranks. The Varen warriors roared, their voices echoing. Under the twin moons, they surged forward, driving the remaining raiders into the forest. The sound of retreating footsteps faded until only the heavy breathing of the victors remained. Eli stood in the moonlight, his chest rising and falling. The dagger still warm in his hand. Zira leaned on her staff beside him. A faint smile on her lips, despite the exhaustion in her eyes, Theric approached, his weapon resting on his shoulder. "You fight well, human," he said. "Under 2 moons, you have earned your place among us." Eli felt the weight of the night settle on him. He knew the battle was over, but the war was far from finished. The enemy would return, and when they did, he would be ready. For now, under the silent watch of the twin moons, he allowed himself a moment of calm. He was no longer just an outsider, he was part of something greater, and there was no turning back. The campfires burned bright under the twin moons. Their flames danced in the cool night breeze, casting flickering light across the faces of warriors. The scent of roasted meat and herbs mixed with the heavy iron smell of blood that still lingered. From the battle, Eli sat on a carved wooden bench near the largest fire. His back wrapped in fresh bandages. Every muscle ached. But the ache felt different, no earned, not suffered. He watched as the Varen warriors laughed, drank, and told stories of the fight. It was a celebration, but also a reminder of the cost. Zira sat across from him, leaning on her staff, her injured leg stretched out toward the fire's warmth. Her silver-blue skin reflected the flames, and the glow in her eyes was softer tonight. "You fought like one of us," she said simply. Eli gave a faint smile. "I had a good teacher." She tilted her head slightly. "I didn't teach you." "No," he agreed, "but you gave me a reason." A deep voice rumbled from behind Theric, the alien chief. Stepped forward, carrying a heavy horn carved from the tusk of some ancient beast. He poured a dark, steaming drink into a metal cup and handed it to Eli. "This is the blood bond drink," Theric said. "It is given only to those who have shed blood for the clan and survived." Eli took the cup, its heat warming his hands. "What happens if I drink it?" he asked. "You are one of us," Theric replied simply. "Forever?" Eli looked down at the drink, the steam rising in small swirls. He thought of Earth, of the lonely days he had spent wandering without purpose. No one there had cared if he lived or died. Here, he had fought beside strangers, bled for them, and they for him. He raised the cup and drank. The liquid was thick, bitter at first, but then warm, spreading through his chest like a small fire. When he set the cup down, Theric placed a massive hand on his shoulder. "Eli of the Varen," the chief said, "you are bound to us by blood and by honor." The warriors around the fire roared in approval. Some clapped him on the back. Others raised their weapons in salute. Zira smiled faintly, her gaze holding his for a long moment. "You are not just a human boy anymore," she said. "You are my clan brother." Eli didn't know what to say, so he just nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle inside him later that night. As the celebration quieted, Eli walked away from the fire toward the edge of the camp. The moons hung high above, bathing the forest in silver light. The battlefield beyond the gates lay still, but the memory of the fight was sharp in his mind. He thought of the moment he had stepped between the beast and Zyra. Of the look in her eyes when she realized he wouldn't run. That moment had changed everything, not just for her, but for him. Zyra joined him at the gate, leaning against the wooden post. "Tomorrow will not be quiet," she said softly. "Our enemies will hear of their chief's defeat. And they will want revenge." Eli nodded. "Then we'll be ready." She glanced at him, her eyes reflecting the moon's. "You speak like a Varen already." He smiled. "Maybe I am one now." They stood in silence for a while. The forest around them alive with distant sounds. The call of night creatures, the rustle of wind through high branches. Then Theric appeared. His steps heavy but steady. He looked at them both, his gaze deep and unreadable. "You two fought well together," he said. "That bond will save lives in the days to come." He turned his gaze to Eli. "Do you understand what it means now, to be part of the clan?" Eli thought for a moment. "It means I don't stand alone anymore." Theric's mouth curved slightly in what might have been a smile. "Good." As the chief walked away, Zyra rested her hand lightly on Eli's arm. "You could have let me die that day in the fog," she said. "But you didn't." Eli met her gaze. "You could have let me die today in the fight. But you didn't either." Her smile was small but real. "Then we are even, not even." He said quietly, "Just bound." The wind carried the distant, low roar of a beast somewhere deep in the forest. It was the same sound Eli had heard on that first day, but now it didn't make his heart race in fear. Instead, it reminded him of where he had been and how far he had come. He knew the days ahead would not be peaceful. There would be more battles, more blood, and more choices that could cost him everything, but for the first time in his life, he didn't feel lost. He felt ready. The moons shone above, lighting the path ahead in pale silver. Eli stood with Zyra at the gate of the Varen camp. Behind them was the warmth of the fire and the sound of the clan. Ahead of them was the wild, dangerous world they would face together. And in that moment, he understood he was no longer just a boy who stumbled into danger. He was a warrior of the Varen, bound by blood. And he would fight for them until his last breath.